You know, go full screen on these slides.
Is on. I think they're both on now. Okay. Okay, are we ready? Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the San Benito County Planning Commissioner, December 13th, 2017. If everyone would please stand for the pledge. Ray, will you lead us, please?
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Are there, Janet, do you have a roll call note? Thank you. Are there any announcements from the boards on anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Okay. Department head announcements. Do we have any announcements?
Just maybe briefly, just want to share that Chairman Lowe and I met last Friday to talk about the general operations of the Planning Commission and touched on some of the informational items that we may study or forecast ahead, and where you've asked for information to be brought back to the Commission over recurring time, but yet your staff has changed out and you haven't had updates and things like that. So we're going to get things like that back on the calendar. Staff also will make a point to update you monthly with the staff level approvals that are happening in the department, just so you can see some of the work that doesn't necessarily come before your bench. For the work we're doing in the planning department. And if you would pencil in for the next meeting on January 17th, the first item to discuss as an open forum for discussion will be, it's been often called the length of cul-de-sacs or something like that, but secondary access. And when that's a big deal, needs to be required and talked about, and we'll balance that with when and how EVAs are merely applied or proposed for subdivisions versus the fully improved secondary street. So we hope to have a discussion of that. And I may want to append or segue on that into an introduction of a very large specific plan that's being considered in the county, and some of the access constraints and through street constraints that subdivision may be presented with if it comes forward. So we'll have an open discussion item where we can't necessarily act on it, but you can direct staff to come back with additional information or other discussion items. And then I think also we'll do this after the normal business. I need to take an informal attendance poll on kind of retroactive back to July here, so that we can see that stipends are paid to the commission members. So I'll be speaking with you after our public hearing item.
Thank you.
One question.
I got a question.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry. The staff approves things that don't come to us. What's the criteria? Where's the breaking line?
It's very clarified in our zoning code, things that are administrative levels, lot line adjustments, temporary use permits, and of course we're doing other things that are very ministerial. We're in support of the building department, like when there's a re-roof or maybe a house that's consistent with the district but needs an approval, a building permit, that the planning department looks at these things and grants approval. Some of those ministerial things are not the ones I want to necessarily bring to you, but more of the discretionary actions where staff is, there's a findings criteria or the zoning code says, think and consider these items and, notify the neighbors within 10 days, take an action. So each one of those are potentially appealable to your body should someone disagree with that. So there's a good handful of the day-to-day work that doesn't come before your bench that we'd like you to see in the planning department.
Okay, Ray, did you have?
Yeah, we did actually in this general plan open up to give them more over-the-counter access so things could go faster. My understanding of one of the last meetings, we had a consensus that if the board ended up not going forward on the marijuana ordinance, we would continue on with zoning land use issues in future meetings, and you guys would be working on that in background?
Very much, very much.
Is that going to come forward next month or after? Or?
I don't know if we'll quite be ready for presenting materials. I mean, we can give a progress report on the staff work that's going into it, but just this Friday, several of us in the county staff will be participating in a webinar that's being presented by it's a private firm, but they service and administer, they give services, municipal services, and it's kind of a compendium of, we'll learn about a model ordinance that's been used in other places and probably hear about its successes or failures and where tweaks can be. So I know the big concern with the county is if we are going to go there, that we've paired up appropriate rules and regulations with appropriate taxes, fees, in a way to cost recover, not have basically mitigate any negative impacts and have it be a positive thing for the city, for the county. And so that'll probably be the Sarah and Tavin show at one point, but I'm not quite sure if January 17th after the break and everything is exactly a prime point, but we can let you know what we're working on, but maybe not necessarily conclusions or recommendations at that point.
Okay, and then we were continuing, and I think we were supposed to have this on all agendas, was the update to the general plan of, what were we working on? We were working on
The affordable housing stuff?
it was pretty much all of the things that we needed to be working on in the general plan, and we were going to have discussion items just on every agenda, just to kind of review, and then maybe pull off the critical items for action items. So, like some of the zonings aren't fleshed out completely, things like that.
Case in point, and I do want to have this be after we have a discussion regarding the second roads, if not 3 and 4, to provide circulation. I think that would be a good segue into the first item like that I did want to bring to you, which is these community areas that are designated in the general plan. So, case in point, what we have...
New community areas.
New community areas, such as the Union Road, San Juan Road, Hollister Road,
Rancho San Benito.
Right across from Chillin' and Grillin', but also far enough down Union Road that it goes quite a while. And so what I'd like to present is a discussion, because just for instance, if that line around the area that says when you develop here you need a community area plan, but yet I've only got 3 of, let's say, 100 property owners at the table right now. How is it that do we turn the applicants away and say you go speak to the other 97 and come back when you're good and ready, or do we provide some kind of guidance on how such a plan needs to be well rounded and what we'll need to engage you on, what kind of community outreach, neighborhood workshops, of those things. So we'll need some good guidance from the Planning Commission.
Well, and when they developed when the GPAC set that together and we isolated that, it wasn't necessarily for a specific plan, but it was, like you said, it's kind of open to interpretation. So it'd be a good discussion.
It actually, in the text, requires a specific plan.
And for whatever those areas are.
This will be a specific plan,
Okay.
yeah. I think this is different than what I've heard is the, anecdotally, the non-specific specific plan, which was the southeast, south of Ridgemark areas, because that hash mark new community area wasn't drawn down there. but yet that's where the development interests are coming in right now. So thank you, Chair and Commissioner Pierce. I hope to present a format that we can have a
Sounds good.
robust exchange.
And thank you. You're doing a great job. I mean, we're beginning to get the boat back on course, you know.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now I will open up the public comment portion of the agenda. If anyone would like to address the Planning Commission on items not on the agenda, would you come forward to the podium, please? Are there any speaker cards, Janet? No? Okay. All right, I will close that and move on to the consent calendar, which acknowledges the public hearing notices and certificate of posting. Do I have a motion, or are there any comments or questions?
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so ordered. Let's move on to the public hearing. Number 1, vested tentative subdivision map, TSM 17-103. Do we have a staff report on that?
Thank you. No, nothing in addition to the paragraph that's in your packet, where the applicant has actually wanted to work on a few additional items so that they feel that they've got a few more T's crossed and I's dotted before coming before your body. So it's not a staff action or anything like that. It was an applicant request.
Okay. And then I know
that would move to the 17th, I believe.
I believe there's might be a question or two from the Planning Commission itself, and then there might be someone in the audience that would like to address us on this item. So I'm going to move forward with that.
Is the question, people are only speaking to the continuance?
Pardon me?
In my experience, when there's a recommendation for continuance, that's the item that's on the docket for discussion, not necessarily the merits of the project.
Okay, but the public hearing notice does not state that. So I'm assuming that we can open it up and take testimony. Am I incorrect on that?
You're correct. It is agendized as the item would move forward. It does not indicate that the agendized item is simply a continuance, although the continuance has been requested.
Okay. But we can go ahead and open it up and allow public input.
Yes,
If you'd like to do that, yes.
Okay. All right.
You want to open it public first?
All right, then I will open the public hearing at this time. Mr. Lee?
Just real briefly, I actually neighbored this.
I'm
State
sorry,
your
would you
name.
want to state your name, please?
My name is William Lee, and I live at 291 Old Ranch Road, so I live adjacent to this property. The main reason why I want to speak is I received no public notices of any hearings for this property adjacent to me. And I think that's really something the commission ought to direct staff to look into. Quite frankly, I support what Dividend's doing. If I were to speak, I would recommend giving the continuance, give them their continuance and get their stuff together. But it does trouble me. And I only learned an hour ago that this item was even on the agenda tonight. Because I noticed that the report said that nobody came to the prior meeting and spoke. Well, it's kind of hard to come and speak. I don't know if any of the other neighbors are getting notified, but I know I didn't, and I have never been notified on anything on Dividend next door.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I had to add. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this time? Okay, then I will bring it back to the commission if there are any questions from the commission.
I'm doing it, and it's about actually their sanitary sewer attachment or access. So the map that I've seen from staff is that they're planning on going through Cielo Vista and on down over to Enterprise through the Roberts Ranch. So they'd have to have both agreements for both of those. It's my understanding that the HOA group in Cielo Vista, which is a private community and it's gated, much like the Ridgemark situation on access for the roadway, They're okay with running a sewer line through there, but they do not want to hook up to city sewer. And this runs right by the batch plant. I would think that, I would just like to clarify that we can allow that without forcing a hookup for that community. I mean, if they want to, fine. If they don't, but I don't want, just because we're running it there, I don't want to make it an obligation of them to have to hook. Otherwise, they probably will not allow it, in which case I'd like to see a secondary option on sewer. Now, it's my understanding the Roberts Ranch has got some stub out that's going to come up, actually probably over by Lee's property. I don't know how that's going to work exactly, because I don't think there's one at the intersection of Fairview and 25. I think the closest they get is down over towards Enterprise. So I'd like to see, so we don't have them bouncing back and forth, at least a secondary option when they come back on their sewer access. So that's all clarified. And I'd also, especially now that Mr. Lee has got up, want to definitely recommend that we re-notice them in that entire subdivision, because they're across the street. And then, of course, any neighbors, Mr. Wattis and any of the other neighbors in the neighborhood. What's our distance? Well, it's only 500.
Generally 300 feet from the
Yeah,
property
300
line,
feet, which might be why you didn't
of which
get
a major
noticed.
road's going to take 100 right there.
Yeah. And
But
maybe,
did I
again,
hear
we're
you-
county. Maybe we can enlarge that noticing area.
Did I hear you clarify that you wanted the entire subdivision residents? Is maybe an HOA?
So maybe you can get lucky and hook into the HOA member, but you're not guaranteeing that every single person is even still is going to know about it. And I think that's our job. And if that's going to be charged out to the applicant, that's fine with me, because we wouldn't need to do it otherwise, right? Okay, legal. Is that legal?
Yes. Generally speaking, there are requirements for neighbors within a certain distance of the property, as well as those persons who would come forward and ask for specific notice. So there always is that option for people who may be outside of that 300-foot distance. If they want to request specific notice, they can get that as well.
They can, but the problem is that they may not even find out about it until it's too late to try to get onto the list. That's
Sure.
the problem with the county.
And that's certainly something, and I just want to let you know that there are certain requirements. People outside of that distance, the department is not required to.
Right, understood. I'm just thinking that maybe we should take a re-look at that as far as distance.
One of our commission discussion items?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I got a question. Do you think that's really necessary? I mean, 300 feet. Because you can create a lot of issues. Because there'll be a lot more people around that area that might not get a notice, and someone's going to come to the board. I didn't get a notice. Someone can miss an address. It was a little. I think 300 feet is suffice. I don't think we should have to change it.
If I could, you've both have brought up great points that are like this. Is with a black and white code requirement of mailing notices to persons within 300 feet. It's a known line, and it's equitable treatment across all projects. There's also a level where you're doing a zone change, or you're affecting maybe over 1,000 households, I believe it might be, where the standard goes up, where we're required to publish a quarter-page ad in a local newspaper like Bonito Link or something like that. I have seen us do interested parties, of which we can certainly say HOAs are interested parties. But it does get fuzzy if somebody at 400 feet but not at 350, and then the other people at 300 feet get their notices. It's a slippery slope on equitable treatment for the next project, where someone says, "Well, I was close, but I didn't get a notice, and I should have." So it might be a good discussion item.
Yeah, all we can do is the best we can do, right?
Yeah. So.
It just creates more work for staff and everyone. And
Well, you're going to help.
Unnecessary.
You're going to have a budget recommendation on augmentation. Do we have your speaker card, sir, with address?
I can fill one out.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Legan, just to clarify, I share over 1,000 feet of property line with this, so I am 0 feet. I'm not here to argue that we make it more than 300 feet, but I have more than 1,000 feet of common fence line.
Where's your mailbox? No, just,
Commissioner Pierce brought something up, just to clarify, because I was at the City Planning Commission meeting when the City Planning Commission recommended approval of the Roberts Ranch project. And I did talk to the manager of the Roberts Ranch project and got him to agree to put a sewer stub on Fairview at Old Ranch. Specifically, not only should I ever do something, but also for dividend, if for some reason they can't get through Cielo Vista, they potentially could come down Fairview.
Yeah.
But they'd run into some other issues. So I think, Commissioner Pierce, you raised a good point. If they can go through, even if Cielo Vista doesn't have to connect, that's probably the best thing for them. But
Yeah, and that's downhill. So, I mean, they hook in and it flows downhill. I talked to Roberts Ranch developers today, and they're saying, yeah, it works well with them. So,
yeah, they indicated they put a stub where they meet Cielo Vista for that, and then a stub also out there at Fairview for whoever might need it in the future. So just to clarify, they did agree to do that. That was just a couple months ago.
good.
And Mr. Lee, if you'd fill out a speaker card so we have your address.
Be happy to.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to address the Planning Commission? Are there any other questions from any Planning Commissioner? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing.
Okay, I'll move that we continue Fairview Corners Vista tentative map subdivision, map file TS1 pound number 17-103 to the next regular meeting, which is what, the 17th? That's at 6 p.m. subject to public notice. And what else?
I just want to clarify the date as January 17th of 2018.
Oh, yeah, next year, 28th. Thank you. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then let's move on to minor subdivision 1245-17.
I think there's
Richard, would you introduce yourself before
and
we
there's a
get started also?
microphone button there too, please.
Is this on? Yes, my name is Richard Felsing. I'm the new assistant planner hired with the county.
Is the green light on at the base of your mic?
Shall I start again?
You bet.
My name is Richard Felsing. I'm the new assistant planner, started August 15th. And so I'm just really pleased to be here in San Benito County and working with everybody. It's been a real pleasure. So thank you for having me. So minor subdivision, MS 1245-17, consists of a 5.29 acre flag lot off of Mansfield Road, reached by the common driveway known as Mallory Way, and consists of RT, or Rural Transitional Zoning. It's in that zoning district. And if you take a look at this context map, you can see on the far left there's some more intense development, and the lot sizes are the parcel sizes form a transition to the exclusive ag, much larger parcels to the right there in the panel. And RT zoning is intended to serve as a transitional area between urbanized areas and exclusive agricultural zones, and serves as a buffer for the uses that are designated in RT zoning. So this is another context map. So the applicant, Sam Brigantino, proposes to subdivide the flag lot, which should read 5.29 acres there. Sorry for the error, the typo, into one 2.5 and one 2.79 acre lot, one of which at 440 Mansfield, and that's the address of the common driveway there, already has a residence on it. And nothing is proposed at this time for parcel 2, which is the 2.5 acre lot. But in the future, there may be a proposal for another single-family home. As you can see, it's consistent with the scale of the neighborhood there, and actually would be developed at a much less intensely developed level than some of the parcels to the left there, to the west. But it's also consistent with parcels to the right. So it meets RT zoning in minimum lot size, lot configuration, and relevant county ordinances and state ordinances as well. And this is a little, just a little slide that shows how it might be developed in the future with septic lines, detention basin, and a pad for a house. As you can see, the easement, and this came up in some of the discussions earlier today, during this proposal, the southern parcel will provide a 15-foot driveway access easement across its property from the turnaround bulb, and this is why I'm showing this slide, to the northern lot there so that so that the applicant can access the future home. This is at the far northern end of the property, just looking across that vacant lot towards the existing home.
Richard, can you go back one slide?
Yes, sir.
I was out there this morning in the distance between that turnaround and the plan that they have. Is there going to be a need for some kind of a hammerhead or turnaround for a fire truck out there?
I think that there's plenty of right-of-way in the turnaround bulb to accommodate any emergency vehicles.
But if they move down in towards the residential area, then if they go down the neighborhood driveway off of the turnaround, because they got to get closer to the house, are we going to have a trouble getting an engine stuck in the mud out there, or do we need to have a hammerhead as part of their plan in order to help just at the end of that curve or something?
Well, we do have a technical detail of the driveway easement that reaches from the turnaround bulb to the northern parcel. And it should be sufficient to accommodate vehicles, although maybe a closer look at how heavy a vehicle might be in order.
Yeah.
But it was fairly detailed. So.
Yeah, all the rest of the houses have plenty of room for a truck turnaround, a fire truck turnaround in their areas.
Okay.
But that's inconsistent. The driveway is kind of long. It didn't feel that long to me when I was out there.
Sure.
But, yeah, it's just...
Maybe it's a preliminary...
just something to think about.
Look, if we look at the driveway at 440 Mansfield, it's much wider. It's paved. And it is circular in nature, so people could conceivably come in one side and out the other. So I can't speculate, but imagine the applicant would do what he's done on that lot as well. So provide sufficient space for larger vehicles. But I think that may not be at issue here. I'm not entirely sure. So there was a soils test and profile as requested done on the property, and environmental health felt it met perk tests and stability requirements for the soil profile. This is the riparian area north of the property, and the property line runs along that fence. So the flood zone A that you see in the map is in the entire gully, but it only overlaps with the property 2.73 feet approximately, roughly, if you believe our GIS system software. So flood zone A does not flood very often according to FEMA at all. And this is just another view of that area, I think. So staff recommends approval subject to the standard and specific conditions of approval.
So, Mr. Felsing, were
Yes,
there
sir.
a couple items that you were going to read into the record where it might be some enhancements to conditions of approval?
And I did pass around some edits ahead of time. So shall I read these into the record, or what is the appropriate?
They're before each of the planning commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't have one in front of myself right now. I thought these were from you. Okay, great. So we have the We have an additional planning commission okay. So there's several that Mr. Felsing has presented, as well as some here from the bench that council and I will be presenting. So line 2 in paragraph appears to be just a typographical replacement of some language. Mr. Felsing's offered that one of these public works conditions be deleted. And you've highlighted some language in condition number 17.
Right. Public Works requested that the highlighted language replace in that sub-bullet there.
Okay. So maybe while we're right on number 17, council and I would like to ask that we have an addition to that reads, in the event that the county rejects an offer of dedication, the applicant shall establish an HOA or enter into a road maintenance agreement or other mechanism acceptable to county for the purposes of road maintenance on Mallory Way. So I just want to take an editorial for a moment on that one, where we have existing residences on the street, using the street and the pavement, but yet we only have one applicant with a 5-acre property right now wanting to divide into 2, and we just need to assure that there's a maintenance understanding between the parties, because it's not a public road. It's been offered, but the county rejected. That they have an understanding of, when the road needs repair, that it's among them as property owners, homeowners, to get her done. And so we just wanted to be on record with having this language here, so we can speak about that further if you need. Also, we would suggest that as came out with the language here is that we do add a condition to satisfy the fire department needs of the fire chief prior to map recordation. So we can get the standard language put in the final conditions there, but Commissioner Pierce, we can certainly make assurances that the fire chief would approve a design for safety. Council, is there anything else you needed me to add regarding? Oh, Mr. Rich, thank you.
To edit this, so what we should do. Sorry, I'm just looking at the different language that's also been requested. And so what I would request is that all of number 17, as modified, as requested by the department, be read into the record so that the commission would understand that if it takes any action today on this proposed tentative parcel map, that it would be subject to the condition as modified, and I would like it to be read in its complete state for number 17, which is a condition of approval number 17, if you see on page 6 of 7 in your packet for the notice of decision.
Has the applicant seen these changes?
If I may, Ann Hall worked directly with the applicant's engineering firm to go over some of the edits to the conditions of approval at her request, and the Public Works had asked for a couple of changes too. So.
We'll give the applicant a minute just to.
I want to thank you, Commission, for your patience this evening. This is a first report for Mr. Felsing, and he was kind of given it at a late hour from the planning manager, who's sitting right here. And I think he's really done a spectacular job working with the applicant, asking the right questions, preparing the staff report. And classic to land use, issues you thought you had wrapped up kind of come unraveled sometimes, and you've got to put them back together. or you get a difference of opinion or a stronger legal opinion, and you handle that on the fly as best you can to present. So I think it's a rather simple project with a categorical exemption for the CEQA. And I know we're still wrapping up some items here, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Can we bring Ann up? She looks like she's getting frustrated.
I will open, yes. I wanted to be sure you saw that, though, before I did that. Okay? Now, did staff want to read anything into the record before I open up the public hearing?
Yes, we have one more, which is basically supplemental finding in the Planning Commission findings. The technical reading of the finding is that the Planning Commission finds the proposed subdivision, together with the provisions for its design and improvement, is consistent with the general plan and any applicable specific plan. And the evidence is given tonight in the staff report and the staff presentation. So the staff report had included individual, had addressed individually improvements and density and the subdivision findings, but yet there's another preceding action that has this verbiage for the need for you to act in that way. And so in an abundance of caution, we'd like that read into the record this evening. Thank you, and I think you do have this one before you.
Yes, we do. Now, is there any questions from the Planning Commission before I open it up? Okay, then I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Does the applicant want to speak or someone representing you? Okay.
Ann Hall here on behalf of the applicant. And I did discuss some concerns about the conditions with Mr. Felstein earlier this week. And in looking this over, it does seem that these recommendations to the Planning Commission reflect the discussion we had. I just hadn't seen it till now. But in looking that over, I would say this does reflect the meat of the discussion. And these changes as proposed, the flyer that you have would be acceptable to the applicant. Do you have any conditions? Oh, and I did want to clarify one question, Ray. We have no opposition to including language that they have to comply with the fire code, because obviously they have to comply with the fire code. But in regard to the specific question about the length of driveway, they're under the distance that would require a hammerhead, and the turnaround was deemed sufficient. So.
It just seemed to be long, but yeah, I have no idea how long it was.
Right. So, no, that was part of the discussion. We meet the county standards, but if you want to make a condition that we meet fire code, that's no problem.
I just want people safe.
Yeah.
That's all. And if fire marshal signs off on this and he thinks he can pull it off, then that's good.
Okay. And did you have any other questions for the applicant in regard to this project?
Are there any questions from the Planning Commission?
No questions.
No. Okay. No. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address the Planning Commission before I close the hearing? All right, the hearing's closed. And I'll bring it back to the Commission. If there's no questions, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the minor subdivision MS 1245-17 with a draft notice of determination findings and standard, and the new conditions on 17 that was read by Mr. Traven.
And the supplemental information.
And it's
yeah.
So I make a motion, we approve it.
Okay.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Okay. Now, under discussion, did we want to talk for a minute about the stipends?
I'm sorry, thank you.
Under discussion, did you want to talk for a moment about the stipends, and we can see if we can straighten that out?
Yes, thank you.
Stipends.
So we Planning department needs to do a better job of taking meeting minute notes, and it's our responsibility to get that done. So we have recruited for an office assistant to replace Amy and help in those staff functions, and we see them helping us get the minutes done. And the segue here is that I would have had a better record if I had better minutes of keeping your attendance and adding to your stipend. So I've been here since, I think the point in question is from July, August, September, October, November. I think I've counted 4 meetings that we've had. We had 2 cancellations, including a special meeting cancellation. But it's been my understanding that all 5 have been here. You've either had 2 or more that have been out of town, or all 5. Do either of you, commissioners, remember taking an absence, or in the inverse, where 4 of you were here and 1 was out in between the July meeting, August, September, October?
Why? Just now, you're saying that there were only 4 meetings?
I didn't bring that note, but yeah, we had the July.
I went through I went through my notes today, and I have 6 meetings.
Okay.
So if maybe there was one that was canceled, and I didn't mark it as canceled.
We didn't meet in October.
Right. We didn't meet in October.
We were going to meet on December 6th, but we didn't do that.
We met November 1st, though. We had a special meeting.
Right, we had November 1st. So you have 6 meetings. 6 meetings, and I'll verify that. Maybe that was my number at my desk. I guess what I'm saying, though, is I think it's been 5 commissioners in attendance for all those that you've had.
Are you including September? I missed September, unless it got canceled.
Oh, that's right. With Mr. Deutscher's subdivision,
Right,
the first review.
Right, so I missed that one. Yeah.
Okay, so 1 demerit.
Always a good trip.
Anyway, so the segue is as we process the attendance through that, we enter it into a time card program, of which is processed through HR. Commissioners Zlotkin and Tognazini, did you receive my email today that had some technical paperwork that HR might need to?
Yeah, I haven't put in something I'm supposed to do. I know that.
Okay, that would be helpful, and it's resting in your email at home. The paperwork that'll help get that done.
Okay. Okay.
700s are coming too.
Yes.
Our 700s are coming up. Yeah. Well, we have to turn those in by what, April?
April 1st, I think. Right?
So just for the public record, the Form 700 is a disclosure of potential conflict of interest or financial interests in the county business.
Mm-hmm.
That's.
Is there?
I want to make an announcement.
All right.
I will be missing January's meeting and February's.
January and February.
Yes.
Long trip, huh?
No. I got 2 trips that they happen to fall on those dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other matters to be discussed before I adjourn the meeting?
Could I just do one more thing? I just wanted to verify here. The discussion items you'd like me to bring next time, were those right on? Were those correct? Where we're talking about secondary access, maybe a little bit about public noticing, but also as far as general plan implementation, that we can bring current the discussion or get a little shape on the community area plans. I met today even with Ann Hall, who's representing some property owners in that area, and we're a little stifled on how to move forward because it needs guidance from at the county level. So, are those the appropriate items for just having a discussion?
Yeah, and the staff might actually develop a list and prioritize what you guys think the low-hanging fruit on implementation of certain general plan as seen as priority, as far as the planning commission level rather than supervisor level, because I'm sure they have their list too. And then maybe we can bring it back. We can say, okay, what can we get done and how quick can we do it?
Now, I'm going to be facetious. You're going to do all that while he's out of town?
That's
It won't be important stuff. We'll call him.
You have no one to go against it, so.
All right. Thank you for your time, Chair.
Okay. All right. I will adjourn this meeting.
I move
I
we
second it.
adjourn. So,
Merry
second,
Christmas,
third.
everyone.
Done.
Second? Just done?
Oh, there was no motion.
No, there's no motion.
Bye.
Yeah, shut it down, that's fine.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.